I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've got Mike.
I am here.
There you go, Mike, thank
That
you.
was good, thank you, Mike. All right, we will move on to the approval of the agenda. Do you have any comments, questions, modifications?
No.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the agenda as written.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we'll move on to the delegations.
After a conversation, I don't have a delegation tonight. I'm gonna have one for the next meeting, though. I don't wanna spill beans that aren't quite ready to be spilled yet.
Fair enough. All right, so we will move on to the approval of the proposed consent agenda. Do you have any comments, questions, modifications?
Sorry, it was in the tough basketball game, it was close. Coach wouldn't let me know.
Get settled real quick.
Yeah, well, it's up there, one period at the top.
We're just glad you made it.
Yeah.
All right, we are looking at the motion for approval of the proposed consent agenda if there is not any questions, comments, or modifications.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 There you go.
Thank you, Mike. All right, moving on to public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? All right, let me read my favorite little spiel. The board welcomes input from the community. Please follow the public comment procedure by stating your name at the podium. When recognized by the chair, each person is allowed 3 minutes to speak. In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, the board is not allowed to discuss items not on the agenda. The board will direct the superintendent to follow up on any items that arise during public comment as appropriate. The board will not allow complaints against any individual, staff member, or student in any open session unless the individual has requested an open public hearing. No student or employee names can be used.
Good evening, Dan Adamson. I just wanted to do a follow-up. I see some things getting cleaned up. I appreciate that. Spring sports coming up. Hopefully we parlay our fields and stuff into the work order. It seemed like in the last board meeting, just my take, we're kind of giving the district a pass just because we feel like the state's not giving us enough funding. But honestly, just because we're not embezzling it doesn't mean it's okay. Mismanagement of funds is mismanagement of funds. So I hope that's not the case, and we'll be paying attention to it. So pretty concerning that we've got a couple of different organizations that have to come in here and help us run financials. So anyway, that's what I've got for the night. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any other public comments? Any electronic?
No electronic.
All right, well, we will move on to unfinished business with a financial update. John?
Thank you. So this time we are continuing to focus on year end. I think we're just about there. There's a few more things we want to research going back just to ensure that we're doing our due diligence on that. We will be meeting with the county again this week just as an ongoing partnership. But the treasurer was here discussing, I believe at the last board meeting, just going over our financials, our plans and everything along those lines, discussing what our plans are. I just want to call out that I think our staff our directors, our principals are all trying to do a real good job and understand that, you know, we're only trying to make purchases that are truly needed, not something that's really a want. And then last time, you know, Mike had asked about one of the reasons our cash balance was not as bad as we had anticipated previously, and I've called out, you know, some of the grants, but it's the staff and then Mona working in AP that are really doing a good job of keeping those fairly strict and only giving us what we need and then balancing out our payments to make sure that, you know, we're only doing what we have to do. So, there's not a whole lot I have outside of that. I do think the next board meeting will have plenty more on year-end reports, board reports, as well as a updated cash actuals and projections, since February's just about done.
One of the requests that came from Mike also was to take a look at some other districts around the region in ESD 123, similar size. And so we're going to be working with the ESD to produce those numbers and get them, if not for the next meeting, for the second meeting in March, but hopefully for the next one.
Any questions? All right. We'll move on to policy 3420, anaphylaxis prevention and response revision. Pete?
Yep, thank you very much, Dina. We made the changes, at least we think we made the changes.
Okay.
And wanted to just present them to the board again for a second look and make sure that they match what, I know you were online, and so I just want to make sure that once they're in front of you that we've made the appropriate changes, and that if there are no more edits, we can go ahead and approve and get them in the system. If there are any more edits, though, we're more than happy to take those back and complete them.
Totally fine, and I apologize to Heidi for not being timely and getting back to her because I've been gone. So it's the fifth paragraph that is really in question, I do believe. And it was like, it says like a supply of epinephrine or nasal spray based on the number of students enrolled. It should be like epinephrine auto injector or epinephrine nasal dosages. Just to be clear, just because we want it to be as clear as possible. So I am totally okay with approving it with those edits. Like,
Okay.
do that today.
Perfect. So we want to make sure that it reads, could you read that back just to make sure we get it?
Sure. So it says, it should say the district may maintain at designated school locations a supply of epinephrine auto injectors or epinephrine nasal dosages based on the number of students enrolled at the school. And then it says that again later in the paragraph, so it's the same thing.
Perfect.
So are we gonna make the revisions and then bring it back to next meeting for?
So we can approve with the revisions as stated, and then we will get it reprinted with that included and put it and approved tonight.
So I move to approve anaphylaxis prevention and response 3420 with the stated revisions.
Perfect.
I'll second.
All in favor of the approval with the changes?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We hear you. Thanks, Mike, for being loud and clear. All right, so we will move on to new business, resolution 2-2026, modified educational program for 26-27 approval. Pete?
Thank you very much, Gina. So I'm asking the board, as the board is aware, because we've had these discussions, but this is formal resolution for adoption of a modified educational program. This is the first step that the board has to take in order for us to notify our bargaining units of potential for cuts to personnel reduction in force, as well as program adjustments based on revenue. So I'd simply ask the board, this is the same wording as we have used twice in the past 4 years. So the wording hasn't changed, the dates obviously have. But we would ask the board of directors go ahead and approve this so that we can start then. Obviously, my next item is I'm going to be talking about some of our potentials for some cuts. So this is simply the first step.
Any questions or anything motion to approve the resolution? A second.
Oh, I can second, sorry.
All in favor of the approval of resolution to 2026 modified educational program for 26-27?
Aye.
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 Okay, so we will be moving on to potential budget cuts for 26-27. Pete.
Thank you. The district staff has been working on some preliminary numbers, and as the board is aware, when County Treasurer Spencer was here at our last meeting, we had identified potentially right at around $1 million in cuts for the next school year for 26-27. As of right now, we are looking at a $1,355,000 in identified cuts. I did not want to put anything in a draft form because some of those numbers are fluid, but the identifications in general, and of course these are not recommendations yet. These are simply identified amounts of money. Mr. Rapp?
What are other districts doing in this situation? They have to be hit the same way, correct?
Correct. You will see, I know of 2 other districts that are going to be passing the same modified educational program resolution and then coming up with their own set of potential cuts here in the next 2 weeks or so.
I think that's going to be, I guess, not shared, but joined to reduce costs and still provide the benefit of this.
We have a few options. There are not significant dollar savings in some of those cooperative type situations with other districts, primarily due to the fact that we're kind of out here on our own. There is one possibility that I can think of that I've had some discussions with the superintendent and Prosser about combining some service. But as it turns out, quite frankly, I think they're more along the lines of full-blown elimination of a service, and we're probably going to be in the same boat. So, yes, any opportunities that we could get to work with other districts cooperatively, lower costs, we will absolutely take.
The way I see it, it actually answers 2 questions. Number one, we tried as hard as we could to keep whatever that was. And number 2, that now it's cut, and that's because there is a funding problem, and the public, the service needs to understand that.
Yep. Agreed. So right now, as far as chunks of money go, we have identified administrative reduction for a total of $200,000. Other personnel, meaning non-administrative staff, $595,000. Athletics, across the board, the total cost is $310,000. We have already eliminated the transportation side of athletics this current school year, so we cannot count that. We can't count that again, but that was cut to the tune of $85,000 during the last school year, during this current school year. Then we have some curriculum recurring costs, not core curriculum adoption costs, but recurring costs within curriculum that we hope to reduce by at least $100,000, as well as some testing that is not state mandated, to the tune of $30,000. The interesting thing about the testing, though, is that we would have to identify other ways of identifying our students for designation as qualifying for special programs through the state, meaning primarily title services. So we do have, at the elementary, a curriculum-based assessment that would take care of us pre-K through 5 that we already are utilizing. We would have to ramp that up and make sure that it meets all the needs for our title requirements. And then look at some type of a curriculum-based option for our secondary kids to continue that identification. And then as you see simply from our next agenda item, Camp Wooten, I think is gonna have to be on the discussion table. These are all just discussion items at this point. Because that is costing us right now about $30,000 a school year for continuation for 6th graders for a week at Camp Wooten. So you add all of those different items up, and I will have, obviously, by the time the board needs to make some decisions, we'll have much more specific dollar amounts as well as specific personnel. But right now, at $1,355,000, we're well on our way to hit that 1.5 to 2 million that is really necessary for us to ensure that we're, for 27, 28, back in good graces with county and state. Yes, sir.
Do we have any, or have we defined, I'm assuming we do have, but have we defined and made it to the public why these cuts are necessary? Where did we lose the money or how? Because I think that's real important, at least in a different life. Somebody came and said, hey, your group is losing this, I don't really why. And then I understood how we could repair that or hopefully build it back for a later time so that we could get it back and, reassemble. So we're basically getting along, but we're also planning for the future. And that's kind of, I think, what's important to the public is that are we planning for the future to avoid this? Or at least mitigate it some.
Yeah. Well, I think with the original $1.5 million in cuts that we did for this current school year, we were very clear that was the amount of dollars that were not going to be collected from December through August, which would have been the levy collection. We were able to collect the first $1 million or so from August through December.
Yep.
So this is simply the follow-up to that, that this is then the impact of having a full calendar year overlapping on 2 different budget years from that non-collection of levy dollars, plain and simple. Correct. Which is one of the reasons, and we've talked about this before, one of the reasons that us going out for a potential levy in April versus November, there's no differentiation or impact for us because none of those dollars from either of those 2 elections would be collected until January of 27 anyway. So I think that the board was doing the right thing when we decided to go ahead and look at next November from quite simply the cost of the election were we to bear it on our own, as well as an opportunity, like you said, to get more communication around the impacts of folks' levy dollars and what they go for.
Yeah, I just wanted the district, at least the people in the district, that these cuts are having to be made. Doesn't mean that we feel they're the very best thing that could be done. I makes it a little clearer the next time the public gets a chance to support them, to say, okay, hey, you know, this is what can happen.
Absolutely.
In piggybacking on what Dan's saying, I think it's really important to identify things that are not directly affecting our students, like not student facing. I think it's really important to, when we're talking about things that we may cut or things that may be downsized to save dollars, I think it's really important. I would like to see things that are not student facing first. I think that's like, because we don't want to affect the quality of what students are getting or the quantity of what students are getting if we can help that. And also, this is preliminary from the budget, because obviously the budget hasn't, like, we're not out of legislative session yet.
Yep.
So, and I mean, I'm interested to see what happens with the maintenance and operations bills that are sitting in Ways and Means, et cetera, right now. And see if those go through, because I think those could help a little bit. So I think that's important to consider, not only for us, but for our community members too, that our legislative session's not over.
Yeah.
So that supplemental budget hasn't been done yet.
Well, and I think it's important too, and we were having the same conversation today, when you have a program that for us has been very successful in transition to kindergarten, extremely successful. And we have data to show that our kids are more ready for kindergarten when they come in. Depending on the House or the Senate version, you know, the smallest cut is 25%. Senate's version is bigger than that. The Senate version, were it to pass, would probably eliminate our program. At 25% cut to TTK, we may be able to still piece together a program. But it's readily apparent between the Senate, the House, and the governor himself. TTK's in the crosshairs, which makes absolutely no sense to me because it's probably one of the most data-driven decisions that was ever made when approval was given for that program, and our kids are better for it. But those are things that are taking place in Olympia and fights that we have no control over, literally. So there is still a lot of work to be done on the legislative front, which is why, though we came to the board with our resolution tonight to get the ball rolling so that people know that we're having these discussions and could end up in a much better position, or at least not a worse position than our proposals are going to be.
Plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Bingo.
Okay, do we have any more questions regarding the potential budget cuts? All right, we will move on to the discussion. Camp Newton.
So as I mentioned previously, our cost to send our sixth graders to Camp Wooten is right at $30,000, just under like 29 and change. We have at this point put down $8,000 for reservation of the facility, which guarantees us that week. You do that a year in advance. And quite frankly, as Gina has said, when we were having the same discussion last year at this time, we didn't think we'd be anywhere near this point. And yet here we are. So the question really is, is the board wanting for us to move ahead with a district-funded initiative that quite frankly is well beyond what we currently have? Or do we want to look at options, or do we want to cancel and then hopefully take that down payment, which is still going to sit there, and apply it to the next calendar year when hopefully we would be able to return to fully funding this endeavor? The biggest concern on my part is simply and we were having this conversation, this is not something that we can split down the middle. In other words, we can't send kids who can afford it and then keep kids who can't here because we don't have the staffing capacity to do both. We either have to send all the kids or we have to keep them all here. We don't have enough subs to get through and do both things at the same time. Dan?
I fully understand what you're saying. I also, having been on the board, what are some of the other options that we've used in the past? Because this hasn't always been a real lucrative district. You know, we got plenty of money for this and that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the program is excellent. And full disclosure, I had $2 and went to it, thought it was great. And that kind of thing, and a granddaughter that's 24 and hopefully. But are there any other options that we've looked at before to make this thing happen if we're still in the same situation we are?
Well, I think first, this has historically been a levy-funded endeavor. It was advertised that way. It was always included in our levy information. Now, for the past 2 years, we have funded this through a grant through OSPI in the legislature, which was for an outdoor education experience. And quite frankly, it came in and matched exactly what we were doing. We could use that funding for it, no questions asked. Which is why, prior to this past February, we took it off of our levy information that we put out publicly. So last legislative session, they canceled that grant, of course. So then, when we ran in February, it went back on as something that would be levy funded. We haven't had to have alternatives up to this point, because between either grants or district funding, when we've been able to make it work. I think, given the fact that we've put money down on it, the real question mark in my mind isn't necessarily even this current school year, but moving forward, I don't think we have the $8,000 to put down to reserve it for the 27 school year. That's of equal, if not higher level concern to me than finding funding for this current school year. But I do know that if we were to look at options, whether it's through private or public partnership, working with some of our local businesses, for instance, I think what we would need to do is say that the district is committed to making this happen, look for as many other resources as possible, and then understand that the district is going to have to pick up the difference. And that is a gamble. I'm saying that completely honestly because I would be willing to bet that we have some folks who would be willing or able to come through and help send kids to camp. It's something that's been going on in this district for over 70 years. However, as we've talked about a lot recently, we need to make sure that people realize that there are consequences when levies aren't passed, and this could be one of them.
I'd like us to do as much as we can, and at the same time, to our public, explain to them, here's where we're at. Maybe we can make this year, but next year is really dark. And I have $2 that went through it. It was an excellent experience, but at the same time, they need to understand the public that if we don't have the funding, we don't have the funding. And this year, since it sounds like we're gonna make this year, I think that would be something that we would highlight. We're gonna go on this, but here's what we could lose the next year.
Mhm.
And look for ways that we can address that. And that would be any people who are running for office, legislators that came here to visit or anything else. Because Camp Wooten is, Camp Wooten, but there's a lot of activities that fall into the Camp Wooten thing. And so, what are we gonna do? And make it, a little bit more public. And maybe put some people who are being elected into a situation that they have to understand this is something the public wants. And they're looking for support from.
Yeah, I really like that, one of the options is to say, you know what, we're gonna gamble with this, we're gonna try and find support, and we're gonna eat the bill, essentially, right? Cause I agree with Dan, I think that, utilizing, because this experience is basically outdoor ed, right? So that experience is very valuable, for kids, and we know that. We're not blind to do that at all, but it is kind of expensive, and it is one of those things that like not every family can afford to pay out of pocket for something like that. And we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to go, not just because we don't have the staff to, staff both, but because all of our kids deserve the opportunity to go, all sixth graders. And so I'm more apt to go with something like that where we say, okay, like we're gonna work. And I'll be incredibly honest, as a board member, I would work alongside somebody in a fundraiser or something like that to help families be able to work together and the community work together to send our kids. I think that those experiences are just invaluable, so.
Which I think was part of the discussion with this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, we do not have the funding to fund it this year. We have the retainer, but the option here that we need to be discussing is what can we do to fund it if we are to do it this year, such as a public fundraiser or trying to get sponsorship for kids so that all the kids can go. But it's an all or nothing. It's either they all go or they all don't.
Yep. Yeah, I really think that, I think it's gonna take a commitment of about $20,000 to make up the difference, to ensure that we have enough funding to make everything happen. If you were asking me, I would say I think that we probably could make that happen between businesses that we have in the community, just people who will want to make sure that this continues.
What are the dates? Like when do we have to have it paid?
Well, our retainer's already been paid.
Correct.
So really what we're looking at right now is payment of staff and transportation that is involved in that. So as we're getting people, I mean, it really is, June 1st is about, we need to have money in the bank by June 1st to make sure that we turn around and roll it through payroll.
So like the deadline is June 1.
I think that's safe. Mike?
So and these are the kind of painful things that just, the reality of not passing the levy. So are there any other outdoor type grants like REI or any of these outdoor companies that have, that type of grant program that would be willing to assist or we could apply for so the kids could still have that experience?
Well, I have not been able to locate any grants specifically for outdoor education processes. I think it would be worth personal phone calls to companies like that to see if they'd be interested in sponsoring something. And it would be privately. It would be something that we would explore, whether some of those folks, whether it's an REI, Sportsman's Warehouse, some of those types of companies, whether they have opportunities for that. Basically, I think what we're looking for tonight is whether or not the board is willing to say, we need to go ahead with this as planned, and then, quite frankly, have John and I get on the phones and go out and meet with businesses and such and see if we can drum up the necessary funding for it. But I have not found any specific grants such as the one that the legislature approved specifically for outdoor educational programs. It was a fantastic grant, and quite frankly, it was underutilized around the state, and I think that's one of the reasons that it was taken off at the last legislative session. Camp Wooten used to be a rather common experience. We are one of the few who still do it locally. So that makes us a little unique.
Is there any information that we could provide for the public, especially for parents and people of the community, to help to source funding as far as not just, you and John, but get the community support to help to make this happen, if that is the route that has to be taken?
Yeah, I think if this is the route that the board would like to go, then yes, John and I can sit down and create some documents to go out to the public, as well as create some opportunities for donations. Specifically, because we obviously, without board approval, we haven't done any of that work yet.
Right.
But we can make that happen.
Yeah, I think we should. I mean, the only thing I worry about is that, and this is where, like, what Gina's talking about, I agree. I think like the potential cuts and those types of things, people have to understand that this is our new reality, or the reality we face, because, it's not, the kids are the ones impacted, whether it's athletics, whether it's Camp Wooten, whether it's, additional teacher support, those types of things. I think the ability to put that out in the public and have conversations about that and let people know this is real, I think that's where sometimes, it doesn't come out that it's real. It's somehow we're going to figure this out. And until a levy passes, we're not. So we're going to have to make tough choices. And, unfortunately, it impacts the kids every time. So, I mean, if we need a motion or whatever, I think that we should, have you and John craft that process and see what we can do, and, create some momentum behind that, which I would think would create momentum around eventually, in November, passing the levy as well.
I like that idea very much. I'd also like us to maybe see if we can get some of the community leaders in some of the organizations and kind of explain the problem and get their opinion of how we attack it. So it isn't just solely coming from school district, it's coming from other organizations that are within Benton City that says, hey, we need to do this. Or at least can say, open the door and listen to them, or something.
Yep.
But make it more than just the school district pushing it, make it the community pushing it.
Agreed.
Do you have any other discussions on it? So.
And really, I don't need a specific motion. I just basically, I wanted to have the discussion in a public forum so that that our folks that are either listening or in person understand that our board wants us to continue this program, and that now it's up to myself and Mr. Hassel to go out and try and accomplish that, which means that we can bring the board back an update and let you know what we have accomplished at each meeting, and then move forward from there. And quite frankly, I'll be able to tell our middle school staff that the board is behind this and that we're moving forward for June of 2026, and that more to come on June of 2027.
I'd like for you, when those reports come back to the board, if there are any ideas out there within the group we talk to about ways for us to make contact or ways for the district to make advancement on that would be helpful.
Well, and I have no problem in saying, Mr. Rapp, that I'm going to be relying on you and some assistance on several of those community organizations, quite frankly.
All right, I don't know if my name will help any, but that's fine.
Well, I'm not even talking about just your name.
That's fine.
You can sit in the passenger seat.
There you go.
Is there a possibility that, like, for those types of things, and I don't know how Prescott is doing this, but Prescott's up to about $500,000 in community funding for the number of things that they've done. Is there a way, like, if we wanted to put a QR code on the Kybee School District website for Save Camp Wooten, Save Athletics, Save, teachers, those types of things, if we were to set that up on a QR type basis, how would the funding go into where it was just dedicated to that, or would it have to go into the general fund?
John?
I think we should be able to set it up to go into an account like that. You just have to do the mapping with InTouch. I don't think it would be too difficult. But I'm not an expert on InTouch, more of their other software.
Well, and Mike, you bring up a good point. I can reach out to the superintendent in Prescott and just ask him what processes were that they used, and the same. Aren't obviously to that level yet, but the process behind the scenes would have to be virtually the same.
Just
So I
figuring
can
out
check
the
that out.
alternatives.
Yep.
I think that'd be cool. It'd be good to understand.
Yep.
So we will move on.
So we will, just kind of put a bow on it. We will move forward, looking at some options and get the board updates as often as we can. Let you know where we're at, and I'll let the middle school staff know that we're moving forward for this June.
Thank you for having that discussion, everyone, because I know that me personally, I've had one kid that went, one didn't. I went, and it is quite the experience and one of my best memories of the school, personally. So I hope that we can get the support of the community working with the school district to make sure that the kids don't miss out on that. But we will be doing what we can.
Yep.
And appreciate the efforts into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've had 2 daughters, so and they thought it was great.
It's the only thing I remember about sixth grade. I will be honest. I still remember our song. Okay, so we will move on to board comments.
I had a couple, so, and this is where it's just, when you start talking about cuts to athletics and stuff like that, but really, huge congratulations to Kybee wrestling team. Outstanding at state this last weekend, so congratulations to those kids. That's a serious commitment. And then just a shout out to Kat Contreras, who is going to be the first legislative page from Kybee in 20 plus years. She's a great example as an ASB president, honor roll athlete, and she's going to be paging for Senator Banky next week. Thanks to Mr. and Mrs. Zorn for really pushing that process forward. So, really something to be admired, and thankful that we can get somebody from Kybee into that legislative process.
pretty neat. No other board comments? We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Well, Mike, you stole my thunder a little bit, but for anyone who has never been to a Matt Classic wrestling tournament, you need to experience it. I've been to several, but went over for this past one, and it's amazing to me that getting all of 24 mats all going in one place at the Tacoma Dome, seeing all the kids, its level of organization is something that I'm very happy to say I'm not a part of because I couldn't do it. Involves mat usage from 24 different school districts that all donate a mat for the tournament. It's an incredible endeavor, and in addition to having our state champion, we had another young lady who finished second. We had a very good showing for a school of our size. And kudos to Mr. Fleming and the coaching staff, the wrestling team in general, for the program is really heading in a good direction. And one of the notes that I put out to the West County Times today, though, we also had our girls basketball team that really showed some moxie in getting through the districts, and our boys basketball team continuing to show improvement throughout the year, which regardless of wins or losses, you want to see growth. And I think all of our programs are currently showing that. So congratulations to the high school student athletes in general. And then the last thing I have is simply that we are going to be, I'm working with McKinstry out of Spokane, and we're working on another grant. This is through the Department of Commerce, but it's in regards to our facilities and trying to come up with funding for facilities improvements. As the board is aware, we were awarded a grant through OSPI for some emergency repair funds for some HVACs. Next on the list of things to attack are, especially here at the high school, some roofing that needs to be redone, as well as some at the middle school. So that's really our two next target areas. But Jack at McKinstry and I are going to be working on that. We're going to be submitting a grant by March 4th to see if we can't get some funding for that from Commerce.
Awesome.
Yep. So hopefully I'll have more good news to share. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. All right, we will be moving on to executive session pursuant to RCW 4230-110, Section 1G, performance of a public employee, Section 1C, consider the minimum price at which is that supposed to be on there?
That is supposed to be on
All
there.
right, consider the minimum price at which real estate will be offered for sale or lease, 60 minutes, no business to follow. So, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.